Hi golfers, Rob Cheney here from GOLFTEC Singapore. In today's video we're going to continue the theme from the past couple of weeks discussing the OptiMotion system at GOLFTEC and how we're measuring golfers to help them play better golf. Today's subject is going to focus specifically on the shoulders. We're going to talk about how not all shoulder turn is created equally, and I'm going to share with you an example from a lesson that I gave this week where we added 20 yards to a golfer's 7-iron just by helping them to understand how the shoulders move in the backswing. So I know that many of you complain about loss of distance as you might get older, maybe loss of flexibility and not able to swing as far back or as fast as you used to be able to. And those are valid concerns. So I want to show you and help you understand that you can get more backswing and some of that power back by understanding how the shoulders and the spine moves in the backswing. At GOLFTEC we're measuring shoulder bend as a forward movement, a forward bend of the shoulders or a forward bend of the spine, and a backward bend of the shoulders or a backward bend of the spine. So extension of the spine and flexion of the spine would be how I would describe it. And at setup, every golfer should be bent forwards. We're bending forward to reach the ground. As I make the backswing, one of the mistakes a lot of golfers make in an attempt to turn and exclusively turn is they move their shoulders around them and around as far as they can, but they retain this forward shoulder bend, so forward bend or flexion. And I'd be able to show you that by explaining how my chest is pointing down when I set up, and as a golfer makes an incorrect backswing move trying to just turn their shoulders, my chest is still pointing down at the end of my backswing. The problem with this is multiple things that can go wrong, but one of the biggest things this does is ironically limits how far back you can swing. So in an attempt to try and really turn these shoulders away from the target, you actually significantly limit the travel of the golf club. My left arm here cannot go any further back. So I completely negate the benefit of trying to turn more because I've maintained this forward bend. And if you're watching this, you'll know that good golfers don't look like this at the top of their backswing. What good golfers do, and they understand, is that whilst there's a rotation of the shoulders, at the same time there's an extension of the spine. So rather than staying bent forwards at the top of the swing, the golfer's chest is no longer pointing down to the ground, it's pointing much more up to the sky. And at GOLFTEC we measure that as shoulder bend moving from a forward position towards a very neutral or even slightly bent backward position. And as you look at my backswing now, you'll see a couple of things that I'll point out to you and make reference to. Number one, my head's going to stay very, very centered. So you need to learn to do this extension if you want to make a centered backswing. And the second thing that I would point out to you is how much longer my swing has got. If I go back and make that attempted turn while staying bent forwards, you can see from both camera angles here how short my swing is. I really can't go back much further than that. If I go back any further, I'm going to have to start bending my arms, and we all know that that creates its own problems. So from here, if I wanted to lengthen my swing correctly, I would go from a position where my chest or my shoulders are bent down or forwards towards the ground, and I would consciously point my chest more up towards the sky. As I do that, you'll see that from down the line and from face on, my head moves back to its original position, more centered, and my lead arm here, my left arm, travels significantly further around me. That means much better potential for creating power and speed on the downswing, and it also gives me a better chance of conforming to the path of the swing that I want on the downswing as well. So just some detail there as to the fact that we don't just turn in the backswing. We turn, we tilt, and we extend, meaning we move our shoulders from this forward or flex position, we bend them backwards towards the target. So let's discuss a real life example of how we use OptiMotion at GOLFTEC to help golfers play better. This example is a golfer who said very specifically that he struggled to turn, he found it very difficult to move, thought that he was quite inflexible. And I'm just going to show you this example of how we use the motion measurement and the understanding of how the body moves in order to make a backswing to increase his distance by 20 yards and help him to hit the ball much higher as well. So at the beginning of the swing, you'll see both golfers are bent forwards with their shoulders. They're similar amount in both of these swings. 35 to 40 degrees of forward bend is quite standard. Both of these clubs are, I think they were the same club in both examples. I think they're both the 7-iron. And that's a good place to start. We start bent forward. You see how the chest for both golfers is pointing very much down. That's how it should be. As we move into the backswing, golfer on the left, that's going to be the end of their backswing. It's an extremely short backswing. It only has 65 degrees of shoulder turn, which is a very low amount. And to go along with that, it has a shoulder bend which is still measuring forwards. What does that mean? That means that the golfer's chest is still pointing down towards the ground. So 20 degrees of forward bend is the golfer's chest still forward, or the shoulders still bent forwards down towards the ground. That lack of extension in the spine and lack of bending the shoulders backwards significantly limits and limited his ability to turn. So he's telling me he can't turn, and I'm saying it's nothing to do with the turn, it's to do with the lack of shoulder bend or the lack of extension in the backswing. And this was a pretty interesting example because I knew pretty much straight away that I was going to be able to help this golfer after he hit just one shot. And the reason I knew that was because as he completed his follow through and went ahead and hit the ball, he manages to achieve an enormous amount of shoulder bend, backward shoulder bend or extension in the follow through of 35 degrees. There's a very good amount of shoulder bend. So he's demonstrating this ability to extend his spine in the follow through. There's absolutely nothing wrong with his follow through position at all and the movement that he made into the follow through. But he wasn't doing it on the backswing. So it wasn't a case that he wasn't flexible enough to do it, he just didn't know how to. So as we take a look at the swing on the right hand side, this is just the second lesson for this golfer. I've explained how to increase the shoulder turn, to lengthen his backswing and to help him hit the ball higher and farther. He needs to learn to extend his spine, just like he does on the follow through. So the feeling of the chest pointing more up at the top of his swing. And now we have a backswing which has 93 degrees of shoulder turn. That's a 30-degree increase in shoulder turn. I'd say that's pretty significant, given the fact that he didn't think he could do that. And that's accompanied by 3 degrees of backward shoulder bend. What that means now is that rather than his chest pointing down towards the ground, where it was pointing previously, it was pointing down, we now have 3 degrees of backward bend. That's just a very, very small amount of extension in that thoracic spine. So his shoulders are just extending back almost towards the target. So you can see there quite significantly there's a big difference in the length of the swing, and because of that we were able to dramatically increase the distance of the shot, about 20 yards there. We were also able to hit the ball higher. It's measurably better, and it's going to enable this golfer to hit less club into each green, which we all know is going to make a benefit to the scoring. So by hitting the ball farther, you're able to then help a golfer to shoot lower scores because they're going to be able to hit shorter clubs into the greens. And when you have shorter club in your hand as an approach club, you're going to shoot lower scores. And from a down the line perspective, you're going to see the benefits of this as well in terms of distance, but also in terms of directional control. On the left hand side, we have our extremely short backswing, We already know that the shoulder turn here is very low. The shoulder bend stays flexed forwards. And because of that, as the golfer starts down, their movement of the club is quite excessively steepened. It's out to in. The travel of the club has not been sufficiently around their body in the backswing to allow them to swing down on a plane or a path that's functional. This golfer's swing path in first lesson was double digits out to in, 11, 12 degrees out to in. Significant slicing and loss of distance. Our golfer on the right hand side now, we have this 93 degrees of shoulder turn. We have the hand path. I'm just going to put the golfer on the left there back to P4 as well. You see how much further around the golfer the hands have traveled and the club has traveled. That's enormously beneficial if you want to hit the ball far, if you want to hit the ball straighter. It's a huge difference. As he starts down, because the hands are deeper and further around him, he's able to swing the club down on a better path. These path numbers now are somewhere around 3 to 4 degrees out to in with a 7-iron, rather than 11 or 12 degrees out to in. That is a massive improvement. It's going to add power, and it's going to help him to control the direction or the curve on his golf ball. So you can see that the adding of the shoulder bend on the backswing is a hugely important piece, and there's so many of you not doing it because you just don't know that it exists. So now that you've seen a real life version of how we help people at GOLFTEC with this exact problem, what can you do about it? Well, first of all, you need to recognize whether or not it's something that you need to practice. Of course, you can do that by filming yourself, keeping an eye on your head, noticing whether or not that moves away from the target in the backswing. And also, if you're someone who feels like they have a very limited range of shoulder turn, this would be a really excellent drill for you to try. I've already talked about the fact that we're really going from what is essentially a chest down position at setup to really what is a chest up position by the time I reach the top of the swing. And I'm moving from that downward position into that chest up position throughout the backswing. So a great way for you to feel this is just to even put the club into the grip of the club here into your breastbone, and just make backswing where you try to point the club either towards parallel with the ground or even slightly up towards the sky. That's teaching me to not only turn my shoulders, but do so with the extension part or the backward bend that we talked about today. And equally on the follow through, this can also help you a lot as well. I see a lot of golfers who struggle with the backward bend part of the spine in the follow through. The example we used a minute ago where we talked about the golfer who took his lesson here, it was very clear to see that physically he was quite capable of bending backwards because he demonstrated it pretty much perfectly in the follow through. But his backswing was super, super short because he hadn't learned or hadn't been taught to extend. So you may find that this exercise and this drill that I just showed you, where you put the club into your breastbone and you swing back, point the club up to the sky, swing through, point the club up to the sky, you might find one side of that drill easier for you to do. Some of you may find both sides of that quite difficult. The point being that just because you don't think you can do it doesn't mean you're not physically capable of doing it. Put yourself through that exercise where you feel more chest up at the top and chest up in the finish, and see how much farther you can hit the ball, how much distance can you add to your shots. Nice straight one. Finished on the line. That was 160 meters, so it's 176 yard 7-iron for me. That's quite a long one for me. When I'm trying to exaggerate and add this extra extension into my swing, I certainly see an improvement in my speed, my club speed and my ball speed and my distance. I don't always swing to the max like this, but sometimes it's a great exercise to really help you understand what's possible, how far you can hit the ball. I also would encourage this for anyone who's not only losing distance, but struggling to get the height on their shots. And oftentimes those two things go together. If you start losing distance, you also don't hit the ball high enough to be able to stop it on the green. So if you wanted to hit the ball farther again, you want to add the height back to your shots. Chest up at the top of the backswing, and chest up or shoulders bent backwards in the follow through. Two pretty good shots there. So there is a very simple way to move your body in a safe and healthy way to add distance, increase shoulder turn, and put some power back into your game. If you have a go at that drill, get down in the comments and let me know how you get on. If you have any questions about that exercise, do let me know. It's a very misunderstood piece of the swing. The extension or the shoulder back feeling in the backswing isn't often spoken about. It's not that easy to see sometimes because the golfer stays very centered when they do this exercise. But if you really look for that extension and that chest to point up and for the spine to be, pretty much neutral at the top of the backswing or vertical at the top of the backswing, that's the indication that you've done this exercise properly. And when you look at the best players in the world and those that hit the ball extremely far, you're going to see those traits being demonstrated. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you've got any questions, please jump down in the comments. If you're not already subscribed, I appreciate you clicking that subscribe button. And I wanted to give a shout out to a good friend of mine in Florida, Brad Steckline, who's just started his YouTube journey. Brad's a great guy, a really enthusiastic instructor who knows his stuff extremely well. If you're looking for another excellent YouTuber to follow, I encourage you to check out Brad's channel. Until next time guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon for another video.